I'd like to bring the meeting to order, and the first business is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you could remove your hats, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to everyone, and first order of business is approval of the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda as published.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes. Yes. So we do have public comment at this time because, as you can see, we are have some people calling in for an audit meeting after this. We will be pretty concise on the 3 minutes for public comment. And if you could please make sure you put your phones on silent, that would be great for our meeting. So first for public comment is Ellie Fincher and Mary Iman. Hello, welcome.
Hello, thank you, board, for having let us speak. First of all, again, thank you. And we do want to start the meeting with a positive, so that's why I brought Ellie Fincher, our junior class representative, to talk to you a little bit about what Student Council has done this beginning of the year and what we're planning on doing very soon. So, thank you.
So to first off, I'm going to bring the attention to homecoming. We actually did get to do homecoming this year. It was very fun. We actually did it outside. So it's a little different, COVID safe. But it went very successful. We had over 600 students attend homecoming. But yeah, very enjoyable. And then our royalty and homecoming game was all planned, and Powder Puff was awesome. And we are now moving forward to Veterans Day. For Veterans Day, we were planned for a little drive-through for our veterans to stay in their cars COVID safe and just have a good time with some signs and some flags and show them that we appreciate them and their service. And then we'll move forward to Powder Puff event, or not Powder Puff, sorry, excuse me. Battle for the Paddle,
Yep.
and that will be in January. Hopefully continue with that, and hopefully COVID won't get in the way. But yeah, we've been just trying our hardest this year to make, somewhat normal for everyone and just have, good time while we can, for our seniors especially. But we're having a very great class, a great year. I personally love Student Council. I'm enjoying it. It's my first year, but love it. It's a great class, and thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Yeah. We have Sherry Tilford.
Hello, I'm Sherry Tilford. You guys know me. First, I want to start off with thanking the board for addressing previous comments and questions at I think it was last board meeting. Geraldine, you addressed comments and questions, and I so appreciated that. I don't remember that ever happening before, and it makes a huge difference. So guys, you're making a difference coming. Keep showing up. What I want to talk about today is I want to request a Parents' Bill of Rights for the Lake Pend School District. The Idaho statutes, Title 33, Chapter 2, regarding compulsory school attendance, state that the parent or guardian shall cause the child to be instructed in subjects commonly and usually taught in public schools of the state of Idaho. If they're not in school, it is instructed by or at the direction of his parent or guardian. So unlike many states, Idaho doesn't regulate or monitor homeschool education. While schooling is compulsory, parents are trusted to do what's best for their family. So this says a lot about the values we hold dear and the importance of individual responsibility and decision-making and freedom and choice. There's an ancient schism and fundamental question underlying the issue of parental rights. Who gets to decide what is right for children, government or parents? Quick side note, modern compulsory education is based on the 19th century model of Prussian military school, creating authoritative structure where the students will be obedient and controllable. I think school bells are a perfect example of this, to create a Pavlovian response where as soon as the bell rings, the students get up regardless of who's talking. This behavior seems rude and disrespectful in any other social situation, but with the bell it's tolerated. Parents have a right to make decisions for their children because they have the strongest and most direct obligation to provide for their children's needs. Since children cannot legally or cognitively make decisions for themselves, the obligation to care for them implies authority to make decisions on their behalf. This authority in a parent-child relationship is non-transferable. Parents create for their children a spiritual womb, a protected sphere in which a child can grow to maturity. The state didn't create this structure any more than they created a mother's womb. It is not from the state that parents get their authority. Parents by nature have a uniquely intimate, permanent, and identity-defining link to their children, and the state has no right to encroach on it. The state's role in promoting children's welfare is indirect and subsidiary to the parent's role. The state provides services and resources that assist in fulfilling parental roles, not actions that bypass, override, or undermine the decision-making authority of parents. Just as the Bill of Rights does not grant rights and freedoms, but rather serves to protect our God-given and inalienable rights as human beings, I would like to formally request the LPOSD School Board codify in board policy a parent's Bill of Rights. I don't know how adding things to the agenda goes, but I would like this item to be added to the next meeting's agenda. And for all you parents, I've created a group in Signal, the messaging app called LPOSD Parents' Rights. So if you'd like to keep abreast of this issue, please join that group. And I have info for you, including a link to a Parents' Bill of Rights signed in a Tallahassee school district this month.
Thank you. Next is Barbara Crum.
So I'm Barbara Crum. I teach at Sandpoint High School, and I've been a teacher in the district for 31 years. And I've never volunteered to come and actually be on the list. This is my first time, and I guess in all my years, I think it's important that I do so. And I tried to talk last time, and then the train and my own, it was just not. So 2 weeks ago, I would have had a very different message for you guys. 2 weeks ago at Sandpoint High School was pretty scary, and it was just the whole, just unsettled, right? And the subs we had so many teachers out, we have so many kids out, and I guess I want to say, and then here it is 2 weeks later, and things are very, very different. And it's just, I think, the nature of life. And this year, as far as what's normal, we're dealing with it. And I guess that's the positive I want to share with the board, is that at least at Sandpoint High School where I teach, I'm very proud to be a member of LPOSD at the school district. I'm very proud to be a member of Sandpoint High School. I'm very proud to be a member of the English department. And we're taking care of each other, so teachers are stepping in when we need a sub. We're staying late, we're coming early, we're trying to take care of our kids, we're trying to contact and do all that. And so I guess that's my first thing, the positive, that we are trying our best and we're trying to do what's good. And I'm very proud to be a part of all of this, even though some days I would like to retire now. And other times I'm like, okay, fine, I have 3 years and 3/4 before I get to retire. Two things that I guess I'd like to share with the board also as far as Sandpoint High School goes is that having the PLCs and having that be our focus this year, I mean, it's kind of been weird and iffy, but at the same time, I'm very appreciative of that we have that time to do that. So right now, Wednesdays, we get to do that. Mostly I work within my own English department, but we've recently had the counseling department come in and present, and so we're trying to get, when we talk about these essential standards, that the counseling department, English department are working together, especially with the freshman and sophomore post-secondary career papers, and then with the senior project. And even though we haven't been able to do it during PLC time, the Spanish department, or at least the department chair, and I have already been working together as far as trying to, how can we do that essential standard, and it's an ISAT goal. And so we said, how can other departments support an ELA goal or a math goal? And of course, it makes sense that they're working with us with an ELA goal. And I guess with the PLC focus this year, I want to say, again, after 31 years, that, and here I'm done, with having one focus has been really, really good. And I feel like I'm making a difference, and I can promise my kids that they're going to learn it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Moore.
And Karen Wallace.
I guess I'll say something. I guess I just want to say, first of all, I'm Karen Wallace. I've been with the district for 16 years, almost 17 years in transportation. I do want to say thank you. We do appreciate out there, the bus drivers do, that we've not masked our kids this year. I just want you to know, just from a transportation standpoint, and I so appreciate this because last year was just so hard for us. We always, at our beginning of the year trainings, we always talk about we're the first people that these kids see. And I want you to know that it was so hard last year when we greet a kid, it was, where's your mask? And that, I think, was terrible for the kids. And I just want you to know that from our perspective, since we are the first ones to see the kids. And it's been so great this year. We're back to good morning, how are you? You know, and it's really been good. And I want you to know that we appreciate it. And I know I'm speaking for myself, but I also know that I speak for a lot of the drivers. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And Kristen Dodd.
Kristen Dodd. Tonight I'd like to talk about district finances and student performance. I've heard Mr. Superger say that we spend $7,500 per student per year, while the average state is spending twice as much. I'm not sure that's entirely accurate, as your own budget says $9,016 per student, plus an additional $10.4 million of federal, state, and local grants, plus the federal ESSER money. So I continue to hear it, at least implied, that more money equates to better quality education. I want to point out that Utah spends approximately the same per student as Idaho does and ranks in the top 10 for states with the best education systems. Idaho ranks number 29. So I'm failing to see any clear correlation between how much we spend per student and how well we perform. And I just want to ask if the board could bring any clarity to this issue. Would you direct us to where we might find details on what that approximate $7,500 or more per student is paying for exactly? I'd like to encourage the board to really start digging deeper into how we can perform better with less. Let's try to find any waste and eliminate it. I've included my sources that include a US News article as well as an NEA.org chart. I came across another line chart that was compiled from multiple sources that I've referenced within, that runs a comparison between school districts in Kootenai, Bonner, and Boundary counties, showing cost per student, graduation rates, and ISAT scores. LPOSD ranks third in cost per student, third in graduation rates, and fourth in ISAT scores. Lakeland spends less than LPOSD, but ranks number 1 in graduation rates. Why do you think that is? Maybe this is something we should be looking at. One difference last year that comes to mind is that Lakeland didn't force kids to wear face coverings or muzzles over their face. Of course, I'm sure there are other reasons for this ranking, but I had to throw that in there. I have also heard Mr. Superger say that without the permanent levy, all extracurricular activities would be canceled, teachers would be laid off, and outlying schools such as Southside Elementary would be forced to close. And I'm just wondering, didn't all of those things exist before the levy? Maybe you can answer that. The bottom line is that I acknowledge that we are doing great in many areas and that we could be doing better, but that per student funding should not be the first place we look when evaluating areas for improvement. And last, I'd like some clarification about the policy that staff, specifically teachers, must follow when experiencing cold and flu symptoms. Are teachers required to stay out for a certain number of days? Are teachers required to stay out if they've come in contact with somebody who's tested positive for COVID-19? Superintendent Albertson, I know you touch on this subject quite a bit. Will you let us know how many absences are due to cold and flu sickness? How many of those absences are due to school or district policy, and how many absences are due to other reasons? I know you kind of try to touch on that a little bit, but it just helps to put absences into perspective. Thanks as always.
Thank you. And our next is Lonnie Blair.
So, almost a year ago, maybe even over a year, I contacted Kathy Burgett, who was the principal at Sagal Elementary, and she brought in James Kohler, bus transportation administrator, and we discussed the pornographic material being shown by other kids on their phones to my kids and their friends. It took a long time to even have anything addressed. Everybody here assumed everybody else was going to take care of it. When I came here, I had a couple meetings. I don't mean to be all over, but I had a couple meetings with Tom and the tech guys for the school, and along with James too, and they came to the proposition of putting new signs up in the buses so that kids could anonymously make a phone call, contact somebody if they saw anything inappropriate on phones. I kind of took him for his word. Last meeting was with Tom and James in Tom's office, and Tom assured me that they had plenty of money and plenty of resources to supply all kinds of really neat signs throughout the bus for kids, and that they would be up this year. Well, I went to transportation yesterday, took a little tour through the bus, and there is one sign right when you walk in the bus next to the bus rules, and it's about the size of this, maybe slightly bigger. As the kids go on and off, it's a rush job, everybody knows that. When as a kid, he told me they would be throughout the bus. So how is a kid in the back? How is a kid in the middle? I've spoken to many kids that have ridden the bus this year, asked if they saw any signs. Every single one of them told me no new signs on the bus. So that shows you how observant kids can be. If they are posted like James said they would be throughout the bus, the kids would have access to that information, not a rush job looking above the bus driver's head to notice or take a picture of the number or write down the number as they're being pushed on and pushed off with the bus. I don't think that's sufficient to take care of that serious problem, which it's my understanding it's still happening. So we start at the bottom, going to teachers, going to principals, nothing, going to Tom, going to James, So I don't think this is a sufficient fix for this drastic issue. Another thing I want to address real quick was medical choices being done for my kids in the schools. Several times over the last couple of years, not this year, because my kids aren't in the schools this year. The last couple of years they were in schools. I have an asthmatic son, and he was denied his inhaler. I spoke to the nurse about that, and she said that she felt that he was using it too much. So towards the end of last year, I went to the doctor, and the doctor gave him a note, took it to the school, made sure they had a copy, the principal and the nurse, saying he could have full access to his inhaler 24/7. He could carry it with him, he could use it as many times as he wanted. And it was still taken away from him, or still denied him, and I called the school and she said, well, he did it 4 times. I thought that was too many. Right. So that's not okay for the schools to make those kind of decisions for me. You guys are leaving yourselves open to so many lawsuits.
Okay.
It's not even funny. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have Ryan Caruth.
I'll start talking now. I'm Ryan Caruth. I have a master's degree in education. I was a Division I college coach, 16 years. I'm here to tell you, you guys are on notice. You're all on notice. And you need to do the right thing. And if you were doing, I'm going to talk to them because you're not listening anyway. So if they were doing the right thing, they would have never recommended the vaccine. They would never recommend the vaccine without discussing the risks. And according to the VAERS database, which is the Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System, which has been maintained since 1990, there have been 17,200 deaths and over 800,000 severe side effects. Masks do not work. Since leaving college coaching, I'm an OSHA-approved health and science compliance professional. I have scoured the studies. There is not one scientific study that shows that masks do anything other than destroy our health and well-being. Not to mention, childhood suicide rates are skyrocketing. Why is that? Because kids are depressed. Kids are sad. Kids want to smile and hug and be human beings. Okay? If they were doing the right thing, they would have never discussed the mask, ever, without talking about the science. If they were doing the right thing, they would have never talked about this vaccine without discussing the risks. You are on notice. Do you hear me? You're on notice. Lonnie Williams told me there are risks in everything. Yes, there are, Lonnie, and it's our job as parents to determine what those risks are, and as human beings to determine the risks when we walk out the door. And according to the data, everybody in this room has a far greater likelihood of dying by walking out their house as a pedestrian than from COVID-19, the virus which has yet to be isolated. Despite hundreds of Freedom of Information Act requests, this virus has not been isolated. The test is not a test. So when they say there are 34 cases in the county, cases do not equal illness. Even Dr. Alan Banks of Panhandle Health has stated that on record. So you're telling lies, and stop it immediately, or you're going to be out of here, and you're on notice, okay? The best thing about COVID is it's waking us up. We are waking up. The truth is bubbling up, and you can't stop it. You can't stop me. You can't stop the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people in this community who are wide awake and watching every single thing you do, Mr. Suppinger. So, stand up, take charge, and put them on notice. And yes, if you disagree, you can leave and go to California, because that's a good place. But
please
guys,
keep it
we have
civil.
We have to fight for our community, for our humanity, for our right to be human beings, because they're playing overlord over here, and you have to call it for what it is, even though they might be your neighbors and community members. And if they were your neighbors and community members, they would never propagate these lies and push this nonsense on us to begin with. So stand up and take charge. And if you want to wear a mask, but you're destroying your health. There are 65 studies in the scientific literature. I would point you to the Lancet, the New England Journal of Medicine, as to why you should never put a mask on your face. Stand for truth. Truth knows no fear. And praise God the Almighty. Praise God. God is watching you.
Thank you. And our last speaker, Lauren.
Doko.
Doko.
Yeah. Hi. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. This is the first time I've been able to come in person. I have been watching on the video, so if you think nobody's watching on video, I'm one of the ones. And I know at one of the prior meetings there was a discussion about saying that there wasn't opposition, say for example, I believe for Lonnie Williams' seat, and taking it off the ballot, so in terms of the upcoming election. And so that gave me the opportunity to educate myself about the system and when that option became available. And so I did go to the elections office to learn that that change was done by the state of Idaho in 2020. So anyway, I want to let you know that I'm learning something new as I'm jumping in here and trying to get involved here. I wanted to say too, with the woman who spoke earlier about the Parents' Bill of Rights, I think that's a fantastic idea. The Bonner County Resolution Workshop was on Friday, and it was a collaborative effort to come up with something that represented the constituents in conjunction with the commissioners. So I would really encourage the board to take that example and create something for all the constituents here that are interested in participating and having the Parents' Bill of Rights. Lastly, my kids are enjoying school. They love, I got them in high school and middle school. My oldest one joined Cyber Patriots this year, for those of you who don't know. Systems administration type of technology group led by Mr. Alex Gray, which is absolutely fantastic. They had their first competition on Friday, so we'll see how they do this year. So I appreciate that being offered, and as well as art and a lot of the extracurriculars. So my kids love it. I'm definitely a freedom of choice parent. Mask-free is super, or as an option, very important to me, and it's the only reason I've got my kids in school right now, back in, because I did take them out for homeschooling. Thank you.
Thank you.
That completes our public comment section. Thank you, everyone. And we have two guests with us. Thank you for being patient with us through the opening of our meeting. But we're going to go straight into our external audit report as presented here. And for those of you who didn't hear, we have Laura Caracita. Did I say that correctly? And Michelle, I don't know your last name. So welcome to both of you, and
We're gonna meet.
can you guys hear us?
Can you hear us, Laura?
Yes, we can.
Okay,
Okay.
good. So we're ready for your presentation to the board, and each of us has a packet as well as you're on our main screen. So take it away.
Great. Can you hear me okay at this volume?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'll just start out with introducing myself. My name is Laura. I'm an audit manager with Magnuson McHugh and Company. And then, as was just stated, also on the call is Michelle. She has been a part of the Lake Pondere School District audit for many years. She's very familiar with the school district, and she's also our director of the audit department. So if anyone has questions for us during the presentation, please let me know. And then otherwise, I'll just run through these slides and go over some highlights from the audit.
Okay.
The
Perfect.
first thing I want to point out is that we are independent auditors. This is a requirement for these types of engagements, and essentially what this means is that as individuals and as a company, we do not have conflicts of interest with the school district, and we don't have financial interests with the school district. And this is really important because this allows us to be truly objective when we're doing our audit procedures. And that really is why it's so important and why it's required for your auditors to be independent. So the first slide is starting off with what is an audit. So an audit is an examination and evaluation of the financial statements, and the goal is to obtain reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free from material misstatement. The other thing that we want to ensure is that the financial statements are properly stated in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Sometimes you'll hear this referred to as GAAP, and this is the accounting framework that the statements are reported on. One thing to note is that management is responsible for the financial statements and the financial information. We don't prepare it, we simply express an opinion on the information that's provided to us. So then the next question would be, why is an audit required? So we essentially perform two separate audits for the school district. So the first being a financial statement audit. This is required by the state of Idaho to be performed annually, and so that's why we do this every year. The second is called a single audit, and this is required for any entity that receives and spends more than $750,000 in federal funding. And this is also required to be done every year. Lake Pondere School District receives federal funding for many programs, so some examples are child nutrition, special education, but also the new CARES funding that happened in this year. And then just to quickly go over audit results, we were able to issue an unqualified, or what we sometimes call a clean opinion. If you have the financial statements in front of you, this is pages 1 and 2. And so we are able to provide reasonable assurance that the statements are free from material misstatement, that they're stated in accordance with GAAP, and that presentation is appropriate. And you'll notice there's many pages of footnotes and supplemental schedules, and everything that is required to be in the financial statements has been included. On pages 67 to 68 is the report of internal control over financial reporting and compliance. So we don't issue an opinion on internal controls, but we are required to perform some testing, especially during the single audit. And if we were to come across any significant deficiencies or issues in internal controls, this is where we would note those. But we're happy to report that we did not come across any of those during the audit. And then page 69 to 70 is the report over compliance with major federal programs. So those are those federal programs that I had just mentioned, such as child nutrition, special education. We did not notice any non-compliance or significant deficiencies with those programs either. So again, that was a clean opinion. and that's the highest level of assurance that we are able to provide you with an audit. And then just really quickly to go over what are internal controls. So these are essentially rules and procedures that management and governance puts into place to protect the district. So they help ensure operational effectiveness and efficiency. They help to ensure that financial reporting is reliable. So these are essential to helping to prevent errors and fraud, that kind of activity. And then ensuring compliance with laws, regulations, and policies. So there are many different types of internal controls that can be put into place. On here we've listed a couple really strong examples. So one would be internal audits, internal checking of financial reporting, so student body funds would be an example. One is a requirement to have dual signatures on checks. But overall, an important element of internal control is segregation of duties. So ensuring that there isn't one person who has control over a financial process or financial reporting, that there are multiple sets of eyes in those activities. And the district has done a really good job of implementing those different segregations of duties. Going to the financials themselves, on page 3 to 19 is management's discussion and analysis. And this is a really detailed overview of what happened during the year. And essentially it's management's discussion of different events, the health of the district financially, goes over some financial highlights, and then at the end it goes over some future outlook for the district, and really what they anticipate happening in the next couple of years and what's important to plan for. So on the next slide, we'll go into some of the highlights in that MD&A, but I would really recommend that if you are looking for some significant detail, I'd recommend reading through it. It's pretty informative. And so one of the main things we wanted to note was the general fund balance. So at the end of the year, which is June 30th, 2021, is the fiscal year end that we audited, the general fund balance was at just over 9.3 million. And this is about just over 2.5 million higher than last year. In addition, it talks about some comparisons with actual revenues and expenditures versus what was budgeted. You'll notice that revenues were pretty similar to what was budgeted. They were a little bit higher. But you'll notice there was a pretty significant decrease in expenditures, in actual expenditures versus what was budgeted. And one thing we wanted to point out is a lot of that was due to the new CARES federal funding that came out this year. So these were new programs. The district, and it discusses this in greater detail on the MD&A, but the district had budgeted for some large expenses that needed to happen with the general fund. But because of the parameters of what was allowed with these federal funds, what they were allowed to be used for, it allowed the district to move some of those expenses to those programs. So they were able to use that federal funding instead of the general fund. And an example of that would be the district purchased, I think, 5 72 passenger buses, which was a pretty large expenditure. And then there were also significant expenditures for technology improvements, different expenses that came with the pandemic and creating space for additional supplies or janitorial, things like that. But essentially, it reserved some of the money that was sitting in that general fund balance and allowed it to keep growing. So that's a lot of what that difference in expenditures is from. The last thing on this slide I wanted to point out is that this year the district has no bonded indebtedness. So there are long-term liabilities on the financial statements, but no debt that's held by the district. This, I just wanted to point out that there is an annual budget process each year. It's very detailed, and it can really help to show management's understanding of the environment and what's to come in the future years. Again, as we just talked about on the last page, there was some unexpected differences this year that can happen, but this has been kind of unprecedented. So the general fund, why is that important? One reason is because revenues aren't necessarily consistent month to month. So if there are unexpected expenses that can range from something extreme like a pandemic or a recession to general expenses that we're more used to, such as maybe there's a severe winter and snow removal expenses are higher. It can be anything like that, but really it provides some stability and some assurance that that money is there to cover those expenditures if they're there. Mm-hmm. So that's been a goal, I believe, for the district. It sounds like from the MD&A to keep building that. And what happened this year allowed that to really, I guess some more stability and keep growing that fund balance. Mm-hmm. It's actually recommended for the school district to maintain enough of a general fund balance to support 1 to 2 months of regular expenditures. And you'll notice in the MD&A that at the end of the year, the district was able to support 68 days, so just over 2 months, which put them in a very healthy position at the end of the year. That was great. The last 2 slides have some charts that show, this one is general fund balance year over year. You'll notice there's a significant jump between 2020 and 2021. Mm-hmm. And again, a lot of that is the CARES funding. We do expect to see this CARES funding trickle in through the next couple of years, but to our knowledge, it's not a permanent source of funding. So it will go away at some point, but it's going to have kind of a trickle effect for a few years.
Right.
And then this last page is showing general fund revenues and expenditures against each other and also over the last several years. So you'll notice that a general upward trend in those revenues and expenses, and then this year dips just a little bit. But again, that is largely due to those expenditures being shuffled to other programs that were not general, such as those CARES funding, the ESSER, and the GEAR dollars. But also, again, that's not a trend I would expect to continue seeing. Probably a one-time to a couple years situation. So at this point, that's really everything that I had wanted to highlight. We can open it up to questions unless Michelle wants to add something. But I would just reiterate that the audit went really smoothly this year, especially since there were so many new elements, like with this CARE funding. We didn't note any significant deficiencies, non-compliance, again, clean audit opinion. It just went very smoothly, and we really appreciate LPO's team helping us get through that process. Michelle, did you want to add anything?
No, I just want to say thank you to the board, and again, like Laura mentioned, the dedication and commitment to a great internal control structure and maintaining a strong fund balance is really due to Lisa's hard work and Mary Ann and all her team. So it's been a pleasure again to work with everyone there. We're open for any questions if you have any.
I would just like to direct the board's attention to something that you had brought to our attention, which was that now, this is on page 30 of the document, in the new pronouncements, that with this new fiduciary activities, now that the student agency school funds are non-fiduciary funds. So that'll change a little bit of where we see those school finances. It'll be part of our financial documents.
Yes, so there was a new accounting pronouncement this year, GASB 84, and it required those student body funds to be pulled into the financial statements. So if you were to pull up last year's financial statements as a comparison, those were reported as fiduciary funds. Those are no longer included there, so it's not new activity, but it is new where it's presented. So it is now incorporated into your main financial statements, and that is really just an accounting change. It's
Yes.
just a presentation change.
Yep. Are there any questions from the board while we have them? Anything that jumped out? Once again, we appreciate the work that goes into the audit. Superintendent Albertson, is there any questions you have for them? Clarity?
We have an announcement.
Yes, just both of these documents, the entire packet and the presentation will both be published under the finance section on our website tomorrow. Also, the entire paper document, if you don't wish to print or read online, is available at the district office for review.
Okay. And as I was saying, we appreciate the work and energy that goes into this. And although our CFO, Lisa Halls, could not be with us tonight, I know that she is largely responsible for how clean the audit is every single year. And her work and her team have made it possible for these finances to be so transparent and clean. And we appreciate that. So we want to say that before we go forward. Is there anything else? Any other questions?
I have a question, if you're not going to ask it.
That's not, this is not the time for it, but I do appreciate both of you being on. Is there, and we will, let's actually have a motion to approve the audit report for the fiscal year.
I'd like to make the motion that we approve the audit report as presented by Magnuson and McHugh.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Any other questions or discussion?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
That motion carries. Thank you both very much, and I'm not sure, I think Kelly is going to sign us off. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
So I'm going to move on. At this time, we have David Miles here to present a school presentation for Sandpoint High School. Welcome.
Thanks. I'm short, so I'm going to stand up here. All right, board, thanks for having me. Thanks for everything that you do. This is a presentation from Sandpoint High School, just covering this year so far. So I appreciate, I've seen a bunch of my staff here today as well, and I appreciate seeing all of them. So thanks. First of all, I just want to let you know we started September 7th and we turned back to live classes and a full school day. So really appreciate all of that. And school seems to be back to normal, more or less. So just including some pictures there. For example, all of our athletics are back. I'll get into more specific details later. All of our activities are back. I'll get into more specific details later. And I just wanted to bring up a couple of really good things that are going on at Sandpoint High School. First, we received the College Success Gold Award. This is basically an online site that ranks high schools around the nation, and they gave us an award that they're calling College Success Gold, which basically just means that we have earned their definition of preparing students for college for 2 years in a row or longer. And so we were one of not very many schools, I don't remember their precise numbers, but not very many schools have received that award in the state of Idaho or in the entire nation. I think it's like 1,700 schools so in the nation. We also had a couple of top candidates receiving some recognition for really high achievement in the NMSQT, and we also have one person who we're still awaiting on their final results. They're currently in the semi-final range, and we'll find out here hopefully soon if they're actually a finalist or not. So doing pretty good academically. We recently completed what we call testing day, and that's basically where all freshmen, sophomores, and juniors, they took a version of the SAT. The freshmen took the SAT 8-9. The sophomores and juniors took the PSAT, and this is in preparation for the state required SAT that the juniors will take this spring, and then also in preparation for all of the students who, you know, will eventually be taking the SAT as well. I wanted to point out that mentors on that day handed out pencils, that they literally hand wrote messages on every single pencil and handed one to every student that walked in the door for testing day. So I thought that was pretty cool. We followed up testing day, since it doesn't really take an entire day, with the University of Idaho there for a couple of assemblies. Joe Vandal was there, and they talked about, you know, college and how you could get there and financial opportunities and things like that. They also had some other presentations that were there. It wasn't just about like go to four-year college. It was more about, you know, just go and do something after high school, and there's all kinds of opportunities for you, including financial opportunities. So that worked out pretty well. We had a survey that we sent out to freshmen afterwards, and really, I'm going to be honest, I didn't think that the freshmen were getting very much out of it based on, you know, how I saw the behavior, but they really responded pretty well on the survey, just saying that they learned a lot of things and that they were appreciative of it. So happy to share that. At the beginning of the year, we had staff receive a bunch of professional development, basically about trauma-informed teaching practices. This is, I mean, I'm just going to summarize it as it's really important to make relationships with kids, which seems like a given. But the idea here is that we know that we have students for all different sorts of reasons who have really tough lives at home. They come to school carrying that stuff with them, and this is basically just trying to help understand that, you know, treating kids as if, you know, they had something traumatic happen, maybe even if they didn't. And so we're still, actually, I came straight from a book study about fostering resilient learners, so we're still taking that on and going forward and trying to, again, constantly improve our staff and making relationships with students. So I want to let you know that. And I'll get specifics here. SHS cheer team is actually larger than I've seen it in a really long time. I thought I saw the cheer coach here somewhere. Nice work. And they're doing really well. And they changed competition season, I think, this year. So I actually don't know exactly when that happens, but I expect to see them perform really well. I see them every day after school practicing, working really hard. And like I said, the team is larger than ever. So congratulations to them. Dance team has performed pretty much at every football game. I don't know that I've seen them anywhere else, actually, but, and I don't know if I don't see the dance coach here, but I don't know if their schedule has it changed as well, and I think that it has, and so anyway, they're performing some really great routines. I've seen them, enjoyed them a lot, and so can't wait for their competition season to be coming up soon as well. SHS cross country teams just have performed absolutely awesome this year. They actually ran across me as I was walking home today. I took like, should I actually walk into my house or walking by? I don't know if I want students to know where I live or not. They were running by my house, so it was really cool. I just want to point out that the girls team, they won districts this year with a perfect score. In other words, you can't score more points than they scored this year at districts. It was really amazing. It just means that they had the first 5 finishers amongst all of the people that were racing at that point in time. The boys team also won districts. It wasn't a perfect score, but they did win districts. They'll both be heading to state, I think, on Thursday. They will run it Friday down at Eagle Park in Boise. SHS football team did earn the #1 seed in the state playoffs. They're using a new, I don't even know what to call it, an online seeding system called Max Preps. I don't understand it. I'm not sure that anyone does, but I'm going to like it today because it did give us a #1 seed, which means we host for pretty much the entire playoffs, provided we continue to win, with the championship game being in the Kibbe Dome. So congratulations to football, and hopefully they continue to do well. They're just in the playoffs, #1 seed, so they haven't done anything yet. I'd like to point out that we have a club at school called Cyber Patriot, amongst many, many clubs that we have, but they've been competing already this year. I stopped there last Friday before the football game and went up and took that picture of them just having some lunch. The team on the far, far side of that up picture there, out of 300 possible points, they only missed 8. And so I think that's really good, but I don't necessarily know the specifics of that. That seems really good, but you know, congratulations to Cyber Patriot. Can't wait to see how they ultimately do at the end of the day. This is a program sponsored by the Air Force, so it's really cool. Let's see, have I talked about soccer yet? Both SHS soccer teams had a great season. Girls just missed going to state. They literally were undefeated. They lost 1 game this entire season. It just happened to be the game that goes to state. It's unfortunate, but they had an awesome season. The boys made it to state, and they ended up finishing 2nd. This was just this last weekend, so they finished 2nd at state, played in the championship game. It was awesome to see that as well. Volleyball team had a lot of fun this year. It was great to see all of the fan support that came out. The student section decided to do something different every time they would show up, something different like dress-wise. So one day it was like all cowboy themed. I think this picture there, they were all tie-dye themed, and so it was fun to see all the different supportive measures that they were going out there. We have a student who sings at every game. Her name is, we have a student who sings at every game, and she's just fantastic. I don't know if I'm supposed to share names, so I'm just not going to. And anyway, she's fantastic. So if you did not make a volleyball game this year to hear her sing the national anthem, I imagine that she probably will be doing it at basketball as well. You should come. It's absolutely great. And volleyball had a great year as well. SHS teachers are always busy doing, all the things that they're doing besides teaching. So there was this event where it's called Scratch for Schools, and basically we just scratched 300 lottery tickets. But if you're really good, you get to scratch 600 lottery tickets because they give you more if you keep winning. We got second place. So, dang, Washington Elementary just edged us out. There were schools from all over North Idaho, by the way. Just so you know, SHS does offer over 25 clubs and student-led organizations, and there's a process for people to start their own clubs as well. I think last year we had a couple of new clubs started, and I believe there's even a new club started this year. I think they started Chess Club, or I should say they brought it back because it used to be a club a long time ago. But lots of clubs, so lots of opportunities for participation by Sandpoint High School students. I don't have any pictures, unfortunately. We also offer a lot of dual credit classes. I think that was already kind of discussed, but we have a ton of dual credit classes, so kids can come into school and dual enroll at NIC and or the University of Idaho, and they can take classes that earn you both Sandpoint High School credits as well as their respective college credit that they are enrolled in as well. So we have a lot of students who are taking advantage of that as well. And yeah, I think that's it. Thank you. Any questions?
Are there any questions for Principal Mrs. Miles?
Very nice, Dave.
Yeah, it's great to see the school and the students thriving this year, and hopefully their test scores will reflect it at the end of the year.
I do too. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I will hand the next part of the meeting over to Superintendent Albertson for staff and student absences.
Yeah, I just wanted to keep you apprised, as I have been, tracking attendance. And again, these are student attendance week by week, and this is the average daily attendance, okay? And this is what I would call the first column for last week, the October 18th through the 22nd, is the worst case scenario, because I'm not breaking it down from if they missed just one period, if they were gone for any part of the day. So it's not like they were fully gone, and I'm just really looking for large trends. And then we have asked parents to keep their students out, or please report if they're not feeling well or have an illness of any type, and that's what the second % is. So I can see that we've got the top 4 schools, and I could go over, I think you have a hard copy, you can see are the secondary schools, and then the first 4, and then we have the elementary schools. And it's, a lot of schools are kind of stayed the same from one week to the next. Some had a little more increase, but I do have to say we did have some mechanical failures at 2 schools that may have influenced the attendance. 2 weeks ago we had a pipe break in the kitchen at Sagal Elementary. Crews worked all night. We got the water back on and school occurred, but we did message the parents that we weren't sure that that was going to happen, so that they may, if they had an option to keep their kids home, they could. Last week we had a very similar situation at Hope Elementary. Luckily it wasn't inside the building, it was outside by the pump house, but we did have to shut the water down, and so we did want to message and give parents the choice of whether they wanted to send their students or not. And again, we spent over the whole last year going through each one of our schools, and I do have to give credit to our maintenance department for working very diligently to make sure that we didn't miss a beat and we did not have to close school for a day. But so there are other things that may have affected some of the attendance as well. So yeah. I just want to bring that to your point. So really this is nothing but just to look for trends, to know is it increasing, is it decreasing? And so by no means is this pinpointing down to very specifics. It's just for trends. And I then wanted to share with you, we have had some situations with substitutes, so I wanted to continue. The week of 10/17 through 10/23, we still saw, less than 10/3 through 10/9, and this is throughout the district for the whole week. So, it seems like it's 211, but there's a lot of schools, and probably the good news, if there is, not that there's 211 absences, but that we were able to fill 100 needed subs were 178, and we were able to fill 111 of those. And again, I want to repeat, that does not mean we did not have teachers in the classroom. It just means when they went unfilled, we reassigned other staff to cover those classes, such on their prep period and or paraprofessionals would teach those classes. So again, probably looking at the percent filled over here, we haven't seen a specific increase as of yet, but I still want to just keep you apprised of that data. So that's the report. Any questions on that? I think Trustee Williams did ask me last week about back to the attendance. Where was our attendance, previously?
Right.
And I was able to have our tech department pull that data, and just in a rough range, this same week, we were so I'm going to say the 18-19 year, we were everywhere from 97% attendance down to like 89. So there is a significant difference here.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
But we are asking families for any reason to keep their kids home if just for precautionary reasons. So.
Yes, Trustee Sleeper.
Have you been able to see any trend in substitutes since we raised their pay?
I think it's too early to tell. I mean, I looked at that trend there. I haven't seen it be significant yet, but maybe in another week. So.
Anything
All right.
else for Superintendent? Thank you for the update.
Sure.
I will hear a motion for consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I second that.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
That motion passes. We have an alternate authorization content specialist for Catherine Bankson from Sandpoint High School.
Do you want to address that, Mr. Miles, or would you like me to?
I can address it if you
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Hi again.
Okay, howdy. Yeah, she goes by Leanne, so I'm going to call her Leanne this whole time. But Leanne Bankson is just applying for alternate authorization. This one's kind of an interesting one because in the 4x4 schedule, she's only going to be teaching next semester, so she won't even start teaching until January 30th or somewhere right around there. And she's completing her program right now. In fact, she's in our building as a student teacher. She will complete that soon, and then she will actually hold her certificate by the time she teaches. In the meantime, however, because the way the state operates their funding formula, we have to put her down as a teacher in our district now, and so therefore, at this time, she does not hold her certificate. So we're asking that you approve her alternate authorization. Her plan is to literally just complete her plan
Okay.
that she's already completed.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Miles? So I'll hear a motion to approve the alternate authorization.
I'll make that motion to approve the alternate authorization for Leanne Bankston at Sandpoint High School.
Second.
Moved and seconded by somebody. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes. Thank you. At this time, are there any announcements from school administrators? Mr. Miles?
Just kidding.
Anyone else? District office? Counseling? Yes.
I was reminded that we're running application week right now. I totally forgot. And so Sandpoint High School is just doing a bunch of activities around getting our students to apply using the general application that Idaho uses. So all the schools in the state of Idaho will accept that application, and we're doing lots of fun activities that are awesome for all of our kids at Sandpoint High School.
Okay, thank you. Superintendent Albertson.
I just would like to say we give accolades to Sandpoint High School. It was a tough week last week. We did have a staff member that passed away in our special education department, and so I just want to say that I want to send my thoughts to the family and also to the special education department and to the staff of Sandpoint High School. So just wanted to acknowledge that in public.
Thank you for reminding us of that. If that's all, the meeting is adjourned.